Village of Alehurst, very tiny. Not more than 24 people. It's cut through the middle with a vibrant stream, which was not here when you first passed through. The water was not flowing at that point because you had not yet squelched old, what's his name, Fatty Buttnicks that lived up north.
The Squelcher Lord?
So it's a nice, just rolling plains through the area. Some low hills, quite a distance away from the nearest tree line. Your duchy is very well forested, but this particular section of it is more open. And you can see for several miles around the village have been cleared and by this point have already been planted for crops and things. When you first arrive at the village, how are you guys traveling? Just on foot, on horseback? You bring a wagon?
Do we have horses?
Yeah.
Victor's on a horse.
Yeah.
If you're riding on horseback, it is a little disconcerting how much of the journey Tenny spends speaking to her horse. Sometimes in horse.
Victor embraces that and asks her to teach him some words.
Okay. Victor. How sincere is that request? I guess
It's 100% sincere.
like,
Victor is absolutely in favor of Tenny being a druid.
Well, I guess my question is, does Victor legitimately believe that Tenny is speaking a horse language and wants to learn it? Or is he just saying that to be supportive of this new role that she seems to be embracing?
With all the shit that he's seen, he absolutely believes that somebody's teaching Tenny to talk to a horse.
Okay. Make an insight check.
That's going to be just a 10.
A 10?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually,
She
you know
tells
what?
you...
Hold on. That's a 16.
A 16. So, her immediate response, you can tell, is she thinks that you're kind of making fun of her. And she doesn't get upset the way she does sometimes, but she clams up, and you notice from that point she stops speaking so much. But you're pretty sure you could persuade her otherwise if you wanted to prod at this.
Yeah, he's going to prod. Knowing how to talk to a horse and have it go faster so he can run away from things is important.
Make a persuasion check. I'm going to make him burn all his psychic dice before he gets to the village. Watch.
Okay, I'm going to take a long rest at some point, right?
Are you?
Never again. No long rests ever.
I feel like that's my decision.
That's going to be a 20 on persuasion.
Tenny seems kind of surprised at first, and for a second you think you're about to get yelled at. Like, oh, okay, Tenny yells at people. Instead, she explains it to you in terms of it being like a really complicated thing that she doesn't understand all that well, but she's sure you don't understand at all. But basically her description is, like Beata says, that it's not really like a language in the sense of Ferniscan or Darkanese, but it's more of animals are able to read your moods. And she gives a description essentially of the Speak with Animals spell, which she doesn't know how to cast, but that's what she's practicing.
Is the description well enough to let Victor try and do it with her?
No. Not without some expenditure of resources on your part. I mean, this is next time you take a feat, you might be able to take Magic Initiate if you're really that into it. But it does indicate that she's making more progress in this avenue of her studies than she is at the sewing and the book smarts and the religion aspect of her education.
Victor will ask her if she wants him to keep it a secret.
Well, it's already not a secret. You all are traveling together, so.
I feel like we had because we gave Tinny the option to just do this, and then she was like, "Well, I don't want to do anything." Blah blah blah. So I think we have reversed psychology Tinny into picking like the thing she wants to do.
Well, no. The argument was we wanted her to pick it. Evie was adamant that she wanted to be a noble, and so Victor is like,
No, she wasn't. Evie was like, Evie said, like, what do you, we very intentionally had a conversation where we sat down and said, we have identified some things that maybe you can do, like, but we would like your input. And then Tinny's response was, well, I don't care, whatever, being
a
you know,
petulant
10 years
child.
old. Yeah, being a petulant child. And then
No,
like, well, okay, until you decide, we'll go with the noble training.
So
That
Victor
was the
is.
discussion.
He seems very into and very supportive of Tenny's new studies. So, but the rest of you, what's your reaction? I mean, to both of these, both to Tenny trying to speak horse and to Victor taking a very strong interest in it.
I mean, like, Jeannie literally went to her parents and said, I want to go study machines, not how to be a noble, and they let her, so Jeannie's fine with it. Like, that's literally what Jeannie did.
Okay.
Yeah, Ekon thinks that this is really normal. Like, everybody gets the basic noble training, and then most of us end up with some other kind of class levels. Like, this is the most normal thing in the world to him.
Yeah.
Evie's only issue is she needs to bathe. Like, Evie's not going to let that go. She has to bathe.
it's the one area where Victor and Evie.
But if she wants to learn to be a druid, Evie doesn't have a problem with that.
I do have a concern. And how is she? She's not using house magic to attempt to cast this, right?
She's not using any magic right now. She doesn't have any class levels. But
She is training in a magic that is completely foreign and alien to us.
that's true.
I mean, that's just a bridge we'll have to cross when she crosses it. I mean, it'd be
this
interesting.
this is a conversation that Edmont would bring up while she's asleep, when we're breaking for camp.
Victor's response to that would be good. Maybe she can teach us how to do it.
I mean, like,
Now, the only other thing is, like, she's starting to act like a druid. She's not starting to act like a harlot, right? She's learning from a...
she's 10. She's not.
Not until the next campaign when I make everybody start with a class level of harlot.
Like, I want to make sure that she's absorbing lessons that are appropriate for a noble. Like, maybe druid isn't appropriate for a noble, but...
Make an insight check.
Are you asking if you can tie a cherry stem with their tongue?
I've tried that. I can't do it either. I worked with a girl who could do it, and it was outstanding. Because we worked at an ice cream store, and there were always cherries on hand.
24.
24. So you start probing kind of surreptitiously to find out whether Tenny is starting to exhibit any harlot tendencies. Because Beata is one of the proprietors of the brothel in your town, in addition to being a druid. The good news is, well, I don't know. Good news. That she's not. No, your 10-year-old sister is not in training to be a
Woman of the night.
The night.
a pillowed consort. However, there's something that you mislike about some of this training, this druidic training. And it does occur to you that because she's doing this kind of unofficially, you're going to have to get more information from probably Beata herself at some point.
All right. We'll put that on the docket. We need to talk to her about exactly what Tenny's being taught and make sure it's all on the up and up.
From an Etherine perspective, one of the provinces of the Republic is a forested province called Velumore. And Velumore had a very strong reputation for a lot of unseelie activities. It was way out on the fringes of the Republic. There was only like one or two major trade cities near the border. And a lot of rumors come out of the place of being a backwater, of people doing unseelie magics and things. To the point where, if this really were a campaign set in that setting for the full time, probably most people who are rangers or druids and use that sort of magic would be from that area. This is the kind of thing the church may put a kibosh on closer to the capital. You guys also kind of had that reputation, being from North Warren, being from way out in the boondocks, but nonetheless, pulling up on Alehirst, the most notable thing you can see from a short distance is there's not much to the village. I actually quite like the random generator that I used here that generated this image. I think it's a very nice abstract looking little map. But yeah, the stream runs through the center of the village, and it's not a very powerful stream. This is a tributary of the water that you all released from Lord Randus' territory up north. Nonetheless, there's a small bridge that spans the water, and you can see and hear from far off, construction on a water wheel is underway.
Mm-hmm. So, walking into the place, the first thing that Jeannie's going to start looking at is the buildings.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because we came through this place before. Like, we know, like, the state of the buildings. How new is the construction? Not
new at all. The buildings look old and weathered, but they do not look like they've been like recently repaired. They're still in the same place and the same configuration as when you saw coming through,
but not the same condition.
Not the same condition. Whereas previously you came through essentially a ruin. The place is definitely not ruined. It's shabby, and it's clear that a lot of attention is needed. And they've just come out of a long winter.
Jeannie is going to write that down. Like I mentioned this before, but Jeannie is keeping like a journal of all this nonsense. She's been keeping a journal since they landed here. But like she's just making notes in that, and I guess it's now even more important since Lugren has fallen to like whatever the hell's going on here.
Okay. Lugren wants to know whether Evie is going to let him do most of the talking. Since this is like his job and all, apparently.
Do you want Evie to let you do all the talking?
He wants to be taken seriously if this is going to be his like primary task.
I may interject as necessary, but I'm willing to let him do his job.
How about this? How about you do that, and we'll go speak to the Reeve of the village, or unless they're the same person.
This village doesn't have a Reeve. There's not much of a government structure here at all. It's just a loose kind of organization of several small houses and shops. What the village has is a headman.
Okay, same thing, I guess.
Well, not really, because there's no nobility living here.
Right, I get that, but like it's the same thing that I was looking.
The difference is that a Reeve wouldn't be making any decisions for the villagers, where a headman would.
Right. The guy in charge that everybody looks to as the boss.
Well, the first person that greets you as you come into the village is the man working on the water wheel. Had you given an advance notice at all that you would be coming?
Probably.
Probably.
I think we leave that up to Lugren. It's his job.
Lugren wouldn't have because he's incompetent.
Yep, that's what I figured. But we expected him to.
If at this point it becomes clear that he was expected to have sent advance notice, he would probably stammer out an excuse.
Okay, well, he needs to be taking notes of what's expected of him.
Okay, so no advance notice, because you were expecting Lugren to do that and he didn't.
Okay.
Yep.
Nonetheless, this man hops down from the scaffolding he's working on, sets his tools aside, dismisses a couple of his work boys to go and get a drop, and he introduces himself as Uto.
And
Uto lives in the village with his wife and 2 children, And over the course of just quick conversation, the headman's name is Rake. Rake Wunderly. Wunderly might be one of the best names I've pulled out of fantasy name generator in years.
It's pretty good.
Uto stops just shy of insulting or admonishing Rake, but it's clear the two are butting heads a lot. But Rake is the man in charge.
Gigi's gonna ask him about the water wheel. Like, is it? She's gonna ask him about the mechanics of it. Is this to like for grain? What are you trying to do?
He's going to build a mill that will essentially automatically squash grapes. It could be used for grain easily, but that's not, his understanding is that's not where the village's wealth is going to lie. And he's not happy with this arrangement. Do you press him on this? Okay.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Uto has the mechanical know-how to build a mill, and it's being powered by a water wheel, and the villagers would prosper from milling grain with it. Rake is less interested in that and more interested in the grapes, in the wine production.
Do they have grain?
Porque no los dos.
Well, because you couldn't use the same mill for both purposes.
Right, you just build a second mill.
But then you have less power running the water. The mechanics just kind of don't work out. You can't have two mills on the same, like on opposite sides of the same water. The discrepancy between Uto and Rake is whether we should be using this mill for food production in the village or whether it should be used for grape production. The cornerstone of Uto's argument is the grapes aren't going to be ready to actually make into a good wine this season or probably even next. Whereas a mill for grain would be useful immediately this summer.
Do they have the land to grow sufficient quantities of grain to justify it?
Oh, they do, yes. For miles around outside the village.
This all looks like a lot of area to me.
Yeah, the families that work here each have a plot of land. And then communally, like no individual family, not even Rake, lays claim to the vineyard itself. But you can see all of that land is cleared. Grapes have been planted. You can see the vines are starting to grow up and loop onto the lattice work in the vineyard. But turnaround on that crop is not going to be as fruitful as grain over the course of the next couple of seasons. It's going to be a couple of years before the first decent vintage comes out of here. So Uto thinks that Rake is like trying to jump ahead of the game here. He wants to get to the part where he's a rich vintner.
And how long would it take to change out the mill if they started with a grain one?
That's an excellent question, and Uto has not been able to get a clear answer out of Rake. He thinks Rake is being... Again, he stops just shy of admonishing the man, but...
Can Chingini answer that question? How difficult it would be to switch out the mechanics to switch from grain to grapes?
There are reasons why that's not done with machines where you guys come from.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, I mean, it's done in the big vats where people like stomp on them with their feet.
Yeah.
There's no reason a machine couldn't be engineered to do it, but it wouldn't be the same kind of machine. Like, it wouldn't be just a mill wheel squashing the grapes.
Well, the question is, if they were to do grains for the first 2 or 3 years while the grapes mature, how hard would it be to then switch the machine from doing grain to have it do grapes after the grapes are actually ready?
Uto said that wouldn't be impossible. That could even be a winter project for him, but it's not what Rake has decided to do.
So,
well, it's a good thing the Duchess is here then.
And at this point, Uto kind of flushes red and looks down at the ground like he's just realized he's in the presence of nobility. Like, oh, beg your pardon, milady.
So if I understand this situation correctly, one guy wants to do wheat because it would be profitable now, and one guy wants to focus on grapes, even though that's not going to be profitable for several seasons, if not several years.
That's
also,
correct.
They eat.
Yeah, Uto is less concerned with whether like wheat production is profitable, and more concerned with that's what the people are going to be eating. That's where the food is going to be coming from.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Through the winter.
The question is do we wish to subsidize these people's living for several years in order for them to get this wine production?
No, the question they need to answer is how are they going to feed themselves while they wait for the wine to get profitable enough?
Well, they just won't have a fancy water wheel to run the mill for their grain. They'll be doing it in a harder and less productive, less efficient way.
And will that result in their village revolting when they get tired of doing that, knowing that they could be having a water wheel do it for them?
Do you ask Uto that?
Yes!
He says probably not, but I suppose Rake knows better than I do of such matters, as does my lord, surely.
I mean, I'm not a wine expert, but it seems to me that squashing grapes with your feet is less work than grinding grain with your hands.
To which point Lugrin pipes up and says, well, I am the wine expert, and I happen to think that this marvelous contraption is a fine idea.
It may be a good idea, but is it a good idea to have one now as opposed to focusing on what's productive now?
And for a moment, you see Lugrin shoot you this glance like you said you were going to let me do the talking. But he doesn't say anything.
I mean, we're not talking to the vintner yet,
No,
Lugrin.
you're talking to Uto.
That's what I said. I'm like I saw the look. We're not talking to the vintner yet.
So Uto is able to direct you to the Wunderly house, which is the largest house in town, but it's not a manor by any means. It's just a kind of a two-story structure towards the center of town, opposite side of the river.
Is it a wonderful-looking house?
I mean, it looks cozy enough, I suppose.
It's wonderful.
And with that, Uto gives you directions and then kind of expresses the need to get back to work. Calls his work boys back over, if there will be nothing else of him.
Jeannie says, "Hey, if you have any questions, I also know how this stuff works." And I shake his hand and skip away because I got to see a really cool water wheel, so I'm in a good mood now.
She's like, "Would you know how to build a clock that works? Because mine just."
Oh, that I need to mount that basin at the base of that clock so I can see what the best form of that clock is.
Jeannie.
Yeah.
Make me an intelligence. I don't know what kind of tool proficiency you have. Woodworking, carpentry.
I have woodworking and smithing.
Woodworking would be more appropriate here.
Yeah.
Make an intelligence check with that tool proficiency.
All right. Ooh. That's a 13 plus 2, 14. 19.
19?
Yeah, on that 2, I rolled a 19.
The water wheel's the construction of it's not completed yet, but you can tell that Uto knows his craft. He knows what he's doing. And kind of retrofitting a mill to process grapes for wine, again, it's not an impossible feat of engineering, but it's also not very common. And if he's confident he has the chops to do it, that means he's a very skilled engineer indeed. It definitely looks like the place is in good hands one way or the other.
Jeannie would have talked to him excitedly about the idea of a transforming water wheel where you could take have modular pieces to take out and
are you going to stay behind as the rest of the party goes on to talk to
yes
that? Okay.
Exactly, yes. I'm that's Jeannie is
He was like, all right, I guess we'll just come back and pick her up in a week.
What a turbo nerd.
Jeannie, why don't you
he is a turbo nerd, yes.
pose the idea that the water wheel runs 2 mills, one for grapes and one for grain.
Well, there's
Well, I
only so
think-
much mechanical power to go around, Victor.
It's a river.
So
It's not a very fast river.
the idea of a transforming mill that can do both at different times, that would be rubbing up against the limits of his ability, which is he's not an artificer. That's the kind of thing that would involve some element of magical engineering. It's not. It was something that's possible for Genie as a long-term project, but not Uto. He does not actually know how to use magic the way you do.
I mean, you just be gears you disengage, right? You just disengage a gear from the spinny bit, and then you take the stone and you replace it with a different stone.
I just watched a YouTube video about like why it's bad, this proposal to cover all of the roads, like highways in the US with solar panels is a bad idea. But it sounds like such an easy and good idea on paper, and people are just like, why don't we do it? It's really
you gotta
easy,
clean
just put
the-
them down.
Okay. Yeah, it's
I can see a
not.
lot of reasons for that wouldn't work.
But
But
not just every roof.
right,
Yeah,
that's what the
right,
video
yeah.
said.
The roof makes more sense to me than roads.
I mean,
But I
they
still
were-
think there'd be problems with the
But
roof, too.
that's kind of the situation Genie's looking at here. Is like on paper, it's like there. In theory, it's an easy thing to swap out a few gears and mount a new wheel, but in practice, it would not be very good or efficient.
So it's just a conversation where Jeannie is like up here, and she's like, she thinks she's talking to somebody, like with the exact same knowledge that she has, or she's talking to somebody who has just enough knowledge to know kind of what she's talking about.
Yeah.
And she's proposing the moon.
There's a difference between a skilled engineer who knows his craft and an
Yeah.
artificer with class levels.
She's tech broing her. She's tech broing the water wheel in this place. Like, listen,
What you guys need here is some NFTs.
what it like
Jared
it'll
Brooks is wrong.
like it the cyber mill will temporarily function as a boat.
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Oh,
Can you hear us, McDohl?
Victor took all of Genie's apes.
McDohl, can you
So-
hear us?
The rest of you leave Uto and Genie behind to discuss important water wheel things. You're met
Reboot.
out at the front gate of this large two-story house by a young woman. No, I'm sorry, not a young woman, a middle-aged woman.
I
With
can't hear you.
heavy sags under her eyes, an apron tied around her chest. Coming up to the front gate, and she bows her head as she appreciates the etiquette of the situation. Good morning, my lords and ladies of Veritas. She introduces herself as Lucy. Lucy is Rayek's. It's complicated.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean.
You'll be tired from the journey, no doubt. I wish that we had known you were coming. We could have prepared in advance, but I can have the rooms set to rights for you, and we can have the breakfast pulled back out if you like.
We ate on the road, it's fine.
Some accommodations would be most appreciated, but please don't go to too much trouble.
She tells you that Rayek is currently working to receive you. Probably this afternoon at some point. In that time, she can certainly arrange to have your horses tend to. There's not an actual stable in the village. There's not an inn to speak of either. They're going to shuffle some people around and make sure you have a place to stay. And she sets to that work. Are you guys doing anything in particular throughout the morning, or just kind of taking in the village?
I think Victor is just gonna take in the village and the landscape and try to get some rudimentary maps drawn.
Okay.
Edmont has
Said they were
I was about to say, Edmont is, says to the others once the small folk have gone away. He says, "Is anyone reminded of a village that we visited a lifetime ago?
There's no halflings here, right?
There are halflings here?
We
that
have
can
we've had we had other lives before this, before these lands.
Yeah.
That was a
This
fishing
time I
village.
don't have all my stuff on my horse though. And he pats his back.
Well, hopefully Well, hopefully, second time will be the charm, brother.
Edmont, you want to come with me and draw some maps? You look like you could draw something.
Just going to take some art, but certainly.
You said there were
Okay.
like a dozen people in this village?
Maybe 24 total. Several families,
Okay.
working men.
Ekon is
relatively
going to do
small.
its best to like try and interview most of the adults at least, just to get a like quick kind of census feel for things, figure out what sort of people are here.
Predominantly farmers, and a couple of them have worked vineyards in the past as well. Rayek is the one with the actual claim over the knowledge of constructing a winery here.
Okay.
But that process
ask
has only just barely begun. So probably the only actual skilled worker in the village would be Utso. He's the only man with actual technical expertise.
Okay.
Evie will ask how long they've been here.
And they've been living here for years and years. And
We know that that's not true.
Well, it's true in one sense.
It's relative.
It's just that until now that there's been no real direction. They've just kind of been scrabbling subsistence lives for themselves. The duchy was a much more dangerous place this far out in the wilderness. Their liege lord before now would have been Evelyn, who just didn't care about this section of his kingdom. It's only in this past year or so that House Veritas has come, made the place safer, run off a bunch of werewolves, and actually has an economic interest in developing the resources.
So the werewolves did not like chase them out of this region?
They had suffered attacks from them. Everybody's got a story. None of the families here are whole.
But werewolf tech stopped as once we dealt with it, huh?
Yeah, this is where your characters' like reputations kind of come into play.
This village doesn't have a wall?
No.
Oh, I'm not sure how they managed to survive without one.
Like again, it wasn't
Yeah, it sounded like it was bad times.
They didn't have a priest of air throwing fireballs.
That's exactly it. There's been no religious direction. There's been nobody to stand up against the monsters and dark creatures of the land, and this is the service that you all have provided coming here.
This isn't like the focal point of our business here, but Evie would recommend that, even a basic palisade wall, to insulate themselves from future attacks would be a good idea. I know it takes a lot of work, and
Who do
it
you
doesn't look like
mention
this
this to?
probably the engineer guy.
Uto?
Yeah.
Uto
Yeah, like
asks if you will be giving him workers to do that.
I don't know if we have anyone available. And it sounds like most of the work is going to be going towards getting this vineyard set up.
And he said,
Would,
then you're
would
going
we
to have
have
to take
any-
it up with Rake then.
Well, do we have any workers? I mean, we have a lot of laborers in Silverbow, right?
You did, but at some point over time they became.
Men, women, and children.
Yep.
Yeah, that's not weird at all.
Just
I mean, it's
Yeah,
not.
I mean,
It's not weird that a tiny village like this wouldn't be surrounded by a wall. It's not unheard of. It's just
Yeah, but this
that's
is-
that's a lot of skilled labor and maintenance over time, and they have a collection of farming families.
right.
The duchy is peaceful now, and I intend to keep it that way, but this is a dangerous world. Like, there's just no way getting around that.
Yeah, you get no disagreement from the villagers here.
So yeah, that's something that's on Evie's radar. This village in the future needs to be fortified, and we have the resources to do it.
Probably very few of the adults here can read and write. And again, these are small farming families. Uto almost certainly can, being a trained man. And that afternoon, you all approach Rake's house. And the place is very sparsely furnished. The rooms seem strangely empty. There's no rugs or rushes on the floor. The furniture seems very unadorned. You would almost expect in a rustic village like this to see animal trophies or something on display, and there's no such case. No cushions on the chairs, as far as you can tell. Rake is a middle-aged man, and he's sitting in the receiving room of his small house. And he stands to greet you, and he bows low, pays you the deference you are afforded. Lugrin looks to Evie to see if she's going to step forward first, or allow him to do it.
She'll let him go first.
Lugrin begins conversing with Rake, offering official introductions. They're here to discuss all kinds of fine details about the enterprise and the taxation and all this good stuff. He's using a lot of big words that he's learned. Like, he's not making a fool out of himself. But Rake, you can tell that he's just being polite, waiting for Lugrin to be done talking so he can start saying his piece. That might take a while. Lugrin knows a lot of big words.
Victor's in the corner quietly watching.
Okay.
Yeah. Luger
Genie.
using the words correctly.
There's just like a huddle of like three of us over in the corner going, "Oh my god, is he still talking?" like Edmont's like, "Oh my god, he's using the words correctly." That's funny.
If none of you step in to put a stop to it, eventually Ray holds up a hand. Says, "Of course, my lord, we have much to discuss. Perhaps we could have a seat around the table, near the hearth?" To which Lugrin stammers out, "Oh, yes, of course, by all means, how foolish of me." And only then does he get to around to introducing the rest of you. Rake's expertise is that he is an experienced geologist. He likes to phrase it as the land speaks to him. He knows a great deal about rocks and clay and soil. His family had been vintners in the realm where he was from, but he's lost his entire family to war. He was the last survivor, and everything, his family's holdings and things were put to the torch. His story is he essentially wandered the wilderness, felt drawn to come to this section of Darkon, and he arrived in this village shortly before the start of winter. He saw...
War with who?
That actually, hold on. I think we're glossing over the important part here. He remembers that everybody was like, he's been here for years and years and years, right?
The villagers have been here for years and years and years. Rake's saying
hasn't.
he just arrived here at the beginning of, just before winter.
Oh, okay. So the village, I thought the villagers were saying, I thought to the villagers he had been here for years.
No,
Gotcha.
the official story from the villagers, which of course goes against the reality of the situation. You guys remember you were through here last summer. There was nobody living here. The official story of the villagers is that with the installment of House Veritas, there will be somebody in play to finally develop the land as a vineyard, as it was in ages past. That obviously wasn't going to happen throughout the winter, and then at the start of the winter, this guy shows up with all of this expertise and decides that he could take control of the situation. That is the guy who knows how to make the decisions to make the land plentiful. And he seems to know what he's talking about.
Okay. But he left
Tell
from
us
a
your
war.
story.
Yeah.
What do you what you said there was this war that drew you here, right?
With respect, my lord, I spend my days now looking forward, not back.
Can you at least tell us the name of the land you originally hail from?
Oh, come on, let's not press him yet. Why don't we all sit down and enjoy a drink together first?
And a kettle is brought forth.
I was thinking something a little more grapey. You do plan to have a vintner here, right?
He says, we do. The land, the clay is very, very rich, and the soil has not been tilled for many years in the vineyards. In fact, you may have seen them as you came traveling through, but it's going to be several years before we have a crop that we could turn into a good vintage. It's going to be a lot of work.
Do you have any vintages yet?
No, it's the first spring since he's gotten here. The first crops and cuttings have been planted, but not harvested yet.
Oh, well, that's unfortunate. Jeannie, can you provide us something a little better than tea?
No.
It's a little
He's
early.
good for me.
Victor's intent is to get this guy drunk so that he talks.
Okay. Edmont, you've asked the man a little bit about the war that he came through, and he respectfully declined to answer the question. However, over the course of the conversation, you catch glimpses up under the sleeve of his shirt, along both sides of both arms, white scars where hair doesn't grow at the front of his arms.
I'm not going to press him on that because he said he didn't want to talk about it, so I'm just going to...
Okay.
Yeah, but I will make note of it.
So, Rake doesn't have any a vintage to speak of yet. There's not been any harvest done. And he politely stops short of pointing out that would be impossible this early in the game. However, he is very confident he can describe to you the sort of vintage he expects to extract from the soil. It's good for making a very deep and heady wine. The kind that you would drink molds with spices rather than just iced with dinner. He sees it as it's going to be a festive vintage, one for feast days and celebrations rather than a wine to be served commonly.
You remind me of a baker right now.
Of course, these decisions in the end will be the purview of our good Duchess. This is merely my advice on the subject.
You seem to know what you're talking about, and I am hoping that you are willing, clearly you're able, to instruct my brother on the finer points of vinting. And I'm very pleased to find that we have someone so knowledgeable.
And yeah, he tells Evie that he's looking forward to working with Lugrin and teaching him anything that he cares to learn.
So I asked him where he was from. Did he deflect that with the same way he deflected the war questions?
He did, with respect. He does not want to talk about the past.
Yeah, Edmont lets the subject drop once that becomes clear because he's not gonna be rude about it.
You mean he's not going to violate someone's free will?
Victor,
Yes, dear cousin?
please do not snipe at my sister at the table in front of other people, or I will have to inflict damage upon you.
You could do that with the Gias spell. That's exactly what the spell's good for.
Yeah,
You
Yes.
can ask me now. Do not snipe.
So yeah, the conversation with Rake, it's going to be a couple of harvests before the vintages are worth selling. And of course, wine is better as it ages. This is a very long-term project. And he does want to temper your expectations because he knows the subject of taxation is about to come up, and he hopes that the lords and ladies of Veritas will give Aelhurst the slack that it needs in terms of taxation in order to realize long-term productivity.
Well, I don't speak for the Duchess, but it seems like grain while you wait on the wine would be fair.
Evie, this is exactly the kind of thing that Lugerin thinks he should be making a decision about. So
But
if you're going to step on him, this is where you would do it.
so Lugrin would probably be in favor of wine over wheat, whereas I think the rest of us are kind of in favor of wheat over wine.
Genie's stance is porque no los dos.
Well, specifically, what Rake is saying right now is that whatever your policy is for taxation on the other villages, Aelhurst deserves a much lighter touch because we're going to be making you a lot more wealth in the future.
I think they have to start making the wealth first.
But if
Like
you
I
don't,
understand the inclination, but we are not like a bustling duchy with thousands of people and a surfeit of resources to spare.
Lugrin looks at Evie, says, all the more reason that the places that have the resources should be allowed to affect them without undue, and he searches for the word, and then Rake finds it for him. Pressure, my lord. Lugrin agrees. Yes, without undue pressure. I think we can keep our thumbs off the scale, so to speak.
What is your Genie will ask him, like, what is your thoughts, Lugrin? Like, what do you propose? Like, what is your actual proposal?
He thinks about it for a moment. And he thinks about it for 2 moments. And it becomes apparent that he has never thought about this exact question before. He knows some good words.
Genie looks over at Evie, and she, like, kind of behind one hand, she does like a hand signal that's like 1 in 10, and then like question mark.
I mean, it seems to me you're suggesting that we make an investment in this village when they don't appear to have any collateral. They don't have anything to show as proof that they'll be able to do what they claim.
Well, you've seen our farmlands. Rake kind of takes offense to the comment. The farmlands are planted. They're being worked well. Our people are secure and productive for the time being. It's just that the wealth of the vine, my lord, will take years to be realized.
And in the meantime, you wish the rest of our duchy to invest and support you. But again, you have potential, but potential does not feed the other villages.
Did Evie have thoughts? I thought I heard Evie in there.
I was going to tell Victor that he stopped talking.
I feel like Evie just has a sign like inside of her surcoat that she just holds up like Wile E. Coyote that just says Victor, stop talking.
It's just she has a glare that specifically means Victor, stop talking. I imagine Ruby had one too. It might be the same glare.
Well, Ruby was never in a position where she had to worry about Victor talking. Victor didn't have any political power as far as Ruby was concerned.
It was the Evie stop talking glare.
You're right, it's that glare.
Well, Evie would never contradict Ruby in public. My position is when they have wine, we can start talking about different sorts of taxation. But if they're just going to be doing wheat, then they're going to be treated like everyone else until they start producing wine. And Evie is invested in this. She wants this project to go well, and they have access to Lugrin, who is a member of the ruling family, who can, make intercessions on their behalf if they need something. And she wants Lugrin to actually learn this craft.
Okay.
Like right now, Lugren doesn't know anything. He's using a lot of big words, but he does not know how to do this. I am willing to give him the opportunity to learn it. I would like him to learn it. That is the job that I want him to do.
So I have a question for the NPC. Like, what is the tax rate he's hoping to get? Is he going for a big fat 0 tax rate, or is he going for something like 2 parts in 10 or 1 part in 10 or something
So
like that?
Rick's answer to that is that his expertise lie in speaking to the earth and getting the best productivity out of the soil, and that numbers and accounts were never his strong suit. This is a means where he would have to defer on more trained parties. And of course, he would never gainsay the lords and ladies of Veritas. Over the course of the explanation, though, it really seems like, number one, he's asking for, don't tax us. We can't afford it yet. And we're going to be making you a lot of money in the future. So don't take anything. And number two, Lugren would absolutely agree to that.
Victor's concern is they don't have anything to pay taxes with right now.
They have wheat. 10% of their grain.
Yeah, and that's common. I want. Yeah, I'm thinking. They're going to support the town with wheat until the vineyard takes off. Like that seems like the economically, responsible model.
Even 10% would be very generous. Remember that's the number that Darkwood landed on after you guys insulted him. His original pitch was 30%.
Right. So why don't we do, maybe we could do some kind of, is this a thing where we can tell the guy that, we could, we'll get back to him with a plan, a taxation plan drafted after we confer?
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, you guys have just arrived in the village. He's going to want to take you on a tour of all of the sites. You're going to get to meet the other people here. You're going to, he's taking great pride in being able to put up the nobles for this visit. You're doing him a great honor just being here. He would love to keep you in town for a while.
I don't think we should, I think we should sit down and, not in front of the NPC have the discussion of, that.
I feel like we have that discussion after we've seen all 3 villages, because all of them are going to have different demands. And that's going to put us in a potentially complicated situation. I don't want every village to have its own unique things that are going to crash into each other. Although, they're all going to say we should, you should not tax us.
That wouldn't be uncommon either, having different terms for different villages based on what they're able to provide, how far away they are, how much they need in return. I'm
not going to commit to giving this guy anything until I know what the other villages also need.
Okay. So you guys come to the end of the meeting, and Rake stands. If you don't mind, my Lord Lugren, we have a room that we've prepared for you here. Because this is a place where you'll be working, we're going to be very close, I hope. And he kind of dismisses the rest of you. Other houses and other rooms have been found and made comfortable for you in the town. But Lugren, he seems to want to keep close to hand for now. Mm-hmm. And again, Lugren 100% agrees. He's very happy to do this. He's feeling very important.
I guess I have to have a little conversation with Lugren.
So Ekon, can you put a...
You tend to have a lot of little conversations, cousin.
So why don't we take a break here in the village of Alehurst. Go ahead and drop the curtain. Go ahead and get your coffee, get your bagel. Let's reconvene here at about 4:30.
Okay.